17 minutes. That's how long I held the keys to the so-called River City's crown jewel, the $47 million mansion at the end of Marina Way, before Lysandra Blackwood showed up with her yacht club armada, 12 board members in tow, acting like she'd just discovered squatters living in her childhood treehouse. Picture this: Lysandra, all platinum hair and icy authority, standing on my private dock waving papers and threatening to seize my new property for maritime safety violations. If you've ever had an HOA president knock on your door with a fake smile and a stack of bylaws, multiply that by 1,000, toss in a dash of organized crime, and you're starting to get the picture. What nobody on that dock knew, certainly not Lysandra, and not her perfectly synchronized army, was that I'd been the federal whistleblower who brought down the smuggling ring operating from this very mansion. That the safe on my yacht held every dirty secret her husband had stashed over a decade of midnight shipments and ghost boats. My name's Tad Cormarmac. Folks just call me Tad. And I used to run maritime enforcement for the Coast Guard until a routine inspection of a farm equipment yacht turned up $280 million in contraband and enough criminal evidence to fill a courthouse basement. Yeah, that happened. 3 hours before Lysandra's circus rolled in, I'd been at the Detroit Federal Courthouse, my hands shaking as I signed papers that would make me owner of the most expensive property I'd ever set foot in, let alone dreamed of owning. I'd earned it, they said, a reward for my testimony. But let's be honest, it was bait. The feds needed someone on the inside, someone who could spot trouble before it hit the evening news. They gave me the house for 5% of market value, but the real price was my peace of mind. You ever drive a muddy old Ford pickup into a neighborhood where even the dogs wear designer collars? That was me, navigating through Riverside estates, passing McMansions with pillars and tennis courts, until I reached number 47, a 3-story fortress in limestone and glass, the last stop on Admiralty Lane. The place looked straight out of a Netflix series, high-tech upgrades hidden inside a 19th century shell, private marina out back, grounds so manicured they probably had their own social calendar. Before I'd even killed the engine, something felt off. The marina's underwater lights, normally a showy afterthought, were blazing in daylight and not in any pattern you'd find on a real estate brochure. My Coast Guard brain screamed, "This isn't decoration, this is navigation." Someone was using these lights to move boats under cover of night, without drawing attention from patrols. The kind of boats you don't want showing up on a Coast Guard report. Inside, the place smelled of salt, diesel, and machine oil, not the Pottery Barn vanilla scent of an empty mansion. The study held nautical charts marked in pencil and Cyrillic, plotted to avoid patrols I'd personally designed. The boathouse was a gearhead's fever dream, with hydraulic lifts, military-grade locks, and secret compartments in the walls. This wasn't a vacation spot. It was a staging ground for something big. Cue the invasion, engines thundering, a $40 million Pershing yacht slicing through the water, 2 escort vessels trailing behind, and Lysandra Blackwood at the prow, looking like she'd invented the concept of old money. She breezed into my foyer with a dozen board members, expensive cologne and perfume turning the air toxic. "We need to discuss your situation," she said, like I'd accidentally parked on her rhododendrons instead of buying her favorite mansion. What followed was a masterclass in HOA theater. Legal folders, threats of maritime seizure, and a laundry list of violations they must have had pre-written. Unauthorized dock modifications, improper navigation lighting, failure to register approach patterns. None of it made any sense, and all of it was designed to make me fold. They didn't want cooperation. They wanted control. Lysandra let slip the real reason. The community's boats need priority access to the deep water channel. We need it back. That's when I knew. I'd walked into a power struggle that made the actual mafia look like junior varsity. Here's where things got weird. I discovered hidden files in the study. The Kovach family, run out after a mysterious fire. The Nakamuras, targeted for reporting strange midnight deliveries. Their home condemned. Captain Morrison, retired Navy, who vanished after finding underwater cables that didn't show up on any map. These weren't just HOA horror stories. They were the playbook of a criminal enterprise using HOA rules as a cudgel. That afternoon, a neighbor showed up, Bill Hutchinson, pipe tobacco and nerves, Coast Guard vet like me. He whispered that Morrison's boat was still anchored over the deep water trench, right where he disappeared. Every month on the new moon, Huge freighters would anchor offshore, smaller boats flitting back and forth. Lysandra's husband coordinates from the yacht club. Don't trust anyone in the HOA. And whatever you do, don't go diving alone. You know what I mean? Paranoia was starting to sound like survival instinct. Not long after, my new yacht's fuel lines got sliced. Rainbow gasoline shimmered on the water. Start that engine, and the blast would be visible from downtown Detroit. Text from a burner number warned, accidents happen on the water. Ask Morrison. Instead, I documented everything, sent it straight to Ree Donnelly at the FBI. Keep them talking, she replied. We're building the case. So I played along. But the HOA didn't play fair. Bureaucratic harassment followed. Fake environmental fines, code enforcement visits, marine safety citations. All theater. But one inspector, a kid who looked nervous for real, slipped me a clue. Check the brass compass in slip 7. That's where I found Morrison's journal, hidden inside an antique compass, waterproofed, filled with evidence, routes, manifests, shell companies, and a USB drive packed with audio of Lysandra casually plotting murder at HOA meetings. Morrison sleeps with the fishes, she'd said. She meant it. I sent the lot to Ree. We have them, I wrote. Morrison documented everything. Her response, task force mobilizing. Keep them focused on you. Meanwhile, offers to buy me out started rolling in. $180,000, then $50,000. Each hour I stayed, the price dropped, a desperate countdown. SUVs circled my property at night, watching, waiting. If someone's paying you to leave and lowering the price every hour, ask yourself, what are they really afraid of? The answer came buried in a lawsuit delivered in a box. The Blackwoods claimed rights over the entire marina based on an 1847 land patent. If I could find the original, I could end their game. I tore through every hidden compartment until, deep in the wine cellar, I found the safe. Coordinates etched in Morrison's compass were the combination. Inside, the patent, authenticated and legal, giving me total authority over 3 miles of crucial shipping channel. The Blackwoods' rights were smoke and mirrors. The annual Riverside Regatta, the biggest party on the lake, was that night. Harold, the most nervous board member, showed up at my door, shaking and sick with guilt. I can't be part of murder, he whispered. Bill Morrison, his friend, wasn't in Florida. He was at the bottom of the channel. Harold handed me 2 years' worth of records. Offshore arms deals, money laundering, and a plan to kill me that night under cover of fireworks. Stop them all, he begged, and left me to do exactly that. I filed emergency notices, donned a tux, and walked straight into the Regatta like I owned the place. Because, legally, I did. In front of 300 of Michigan's wealthiest, I projected the patent onto the club's big screen and played Morrison's recordings. Lysandra's voice rang out, her secrets echoing off the marble. The room erupted, some folks scrambling for the exits, others frozen in horror as Donovan Blackwood tried, in vain, to call in reinforcements. But the FBI and Coast Guard were ready. Helicopters, searchlights, tactical teams. The takedown was cinematic. Lysandra, cuffed and seething, snarled, "You destroyed everything." "No," I said. "I destroyed your ability to keep doing it." 17 board members arrested, arms shipments intercepted, Morrison's body recovered from the deep water, right where he'd been left. Finally, justice for a hero no one but a few neighbors even remembered. In the months that followed, Riverside Marina changed. The ghosts of Victor Clave and Bill Morrison seemed at peace, their deaths finally meaning something. The Kovach family moved back in. The Nakamuras reopened for business, protected by new Coast Guard patrols. The mansion became a maritime museum, Morrison's journal the centerpiece. The 1847 patent went to the state. No more private control, no more criminal empire. 6 months later, I was still there. The neighbors waved when they saw me. Harold brought his grandkids to fish off the newly public dock. Even Ree and I started dating. Turns out, nothing brings people together like a near-death HOA experience and federal indictments. On the anniversary of the arrests, Morrison's boat was finally moved. Dozens of boats, yachts, kayaks, fishing skiffs, gathered to drop wreaths into the deep water. The channel, once a highway for contraband, had become a floating memorial. Sometimes I walk those docks at night and wonder how close I came to walking away. If I'd taken the money or ignored Morrison's warnings, those waters would still belong to people who thought money and murder could buy anything. But it turns out, sometimes all it takes is one stubborn Coast Guard investigator, a brass compass, and a journal full of evidence to prove that secrets never stay buried for long. So here's my question. What would you do? Would you have stayed or cut and run? Drop your thoughts below and tell me where you stand on justice, loyalty, and how much any of us really owe the places we call home. Because sometimes, the only thing standing between an empire and its downfall is the one person willing to say no, loud enough, and with proof, for the whole world to hear.